Hello. How long has this been going on? A soft, slow burn BL romance between a jaded programmer and a not-so-straight rich boy. Healing, sweet, and just a little bit silly. You're listening to the story of Tao Jay and Huo Ryan. Let's begin. Welcome to Whisper and Wonder, where soft stories meet soft voices. You're listening to Hello. How long has this been going on? Episode, Satap. Let's begin. Episode 1. Jetong Games, 5:58 p.m. Tao Jay reviewed the code he'd written one last time, before casually clicking open the stack of new messages on DingTalk. Planner, Wong Henry. Looks great. No issues at all. Big Tao, you rock. Planner, Wong Henry. Yet another bug-free day.jpg. Front end, Tao Jay. Awesome. I'm heading out then. 2 minutes passed quickly. The moment the clock hit 6. Tao Jay shut down his computer, screwed the lid back onto his water bottle, picked up a shopping bag from the desk, and happily clocked out. From the next cubicle, fellow programmer Shui Hugo blinked in surprise. You're leaving already, Tao? Tao Jay smiled. Yup, if I wait any longer, the supermarket will run out of veggies. We're pushing a build tonight. What are we supposed to do without you? Shui Hugo frowned. With a calm tone, Tao Jay replied, I've checked everything I'm responsible for. It's not connected to your modules. So I'm all clear. Shui Hugo's brows furrowed even more. This builds on a tight schedule. There are still a bunch of features to revise. Stay a bit, I'll send you the new tasks. Tao Jay cut him off with a puzzled look. Tight schedule? That's odd. I saw you watching videos on D-Side all afternoon. Shui Hugo coughed. I was, studying UI designs from others. Tao Jay beamed at him with exaggerated encouragement. Wow, so diligent. You must have studied for hours. I'm sure you've got tons of ideas for those revisions now. Shui Hugo had no choice but to bluff his way through. Oh, of course. Then keep it up. Bye. Without giving him a chance to respond, Tao Jay turned on his heel and strode away, leaving behind a confident, graceful silhouette. The nearby employees who had been watching the exchange burst into admiring whispers. Looks like the king of passing work finally met his match. Man, I wish I were Tao Jay. Less than 2 months in and he's already this bold. Won't even stay late for a deployment. Well, he can afford it. His code is fast and flawless. Never needs rework. It's like having 3 devs in one. I heard he turned down job offers from big name companies just to avoid overtime. Ever since he joined, our lead dev Lee barely loses hair anymore. Speaking of hair, have you seen Tao Jay's hairline? So thick. And he's good looking, too. I'm so jealous. Don't even bother dreaming. Guys like him live in a different world. I heard tons of girls from the company next door tried asking him out. And he turned all of them down. Let's revoke his programmer license. QAQ. Unbothered by all this, Tao Jay hopped onto a bus and headed to the supermarket near his apartment. Mentally planning out dinner. Evening was falling. The store buzzed with life. All around him were vivid displays of fresh produce, blushing tomatoes, leafy greens glistening with dew, golden bell peppers, live shrimp flipping out of tanks, and savory marinated meats releasing mouthwatering aromas. Tao Jay took a deep breath. It feels good to be alive. No one knew this, but Tao Jay had died once. Back then, he'd also been named Tao Jay, quiet, well-behaved, top of his class. He'd grown up in a loving family, graduated from the nation's most prestigious computer science program, and landed a coveted job at a top tech firm. He worked hard, saved every penny, hoping to build a life in the big city and make his parents proud. But before he could even save enough for a down payment on a home, he collapsed from overwork. Tao Jay had no hobbies outside of coding. Because of his orientation, he'd never dated. His only attachment was to his parents. Fortunately, just before he died, his mother found out she was pregnant again. At least they'd have someone to carry on the family's warmth. He had no regrets. But when he opened his eyes and found himself in the world of a novel, he was filled with confusion. Especially when the entire plot of the story suddenly downloaded into his brain, and it nearly broke him. The book was called Spoiled by the Ruthless Disabled Boss, a melodramatic BL romance. The main character, Shen Neil, was gentle, beautiful, and frail. After being abused for over 20 years by his adoptive family, he accidentally met the cold, ruthless, disabled CEO, Huo Ryan. From then on, Huo Ryan became Shen Neil's protector, and Shen Neil became his only weakness. With Huo Ryan's help, Shen Neil escaped his abusers and uncovered his true identity, the long-lost heir of the wealthy Shen family. He was welcomed home with open arms. Those who once looked down on him were slapped in the face, and admirers flocked to him. His relationship with Huo Ryan hit turbulence amidst this chaos. Eventually, Shen Neil used his medical talents to heal Huo Ryan's legs. Proving his love, the two moved abroad, registered their marriage, and lived happily ever after. To Tao Jay, the plot was nothing short of an outdated soap opera. But the worst was yet to come. There was also a side character named Tao Jay, an orphan who had once been Huo Ryan's first love in college. They had been deeply in love until a tragic car crash left Huo Ryan paralyzed while shielding Tao Jay. After that, the Huo family cast him aside. And what did Tao Jay do? He walked away without a word. That betrayal shattered Huo Ryan, leaving him cold and bitter, until Shen Neil came along and mended his broken soul. Later, when Huo Ryan rose back to power as heir to the Huo group, the ex, Tao Jay, tried to come crawling back. But Shen Neil stood firmly between them, defending Huo Ryan with tearful reproach. That moment cemented Huo Ryan's love for Shen Neil and marked the final end of Tao Jay in his heart. Huo Ryan had launched a relentless campaign of revenge against Tao Jay. He orchestrated a car accident to make Tao Jay taste the same pain he had once endured. Then, by pure accident, Shen Neil exposed Tao Jay's cold-hearted deeds to the public. Outraged netizens flooded the internet with condemnation. Tao Jay lost everything: his job, his dignity, even the ability to care for himself due to his injuries. In the end, he took his own life in quiet despair. Tao Jay, eyes trembling, could only think. Terrifying. He had no idea what twist of fate had granted him another shot at life. Strangely, he didn't feel too much regret about his death. If there was one lingering wish, it was that in his next life, he wouldn't have to work overtime anymore. He just wanted to eat his meals on time, exercise, and maybe, just maybe, live until 99. For someone like him, a typical 9-to-5er with no grand dreams. Living day in and day out between home and the office. This roller coaster of fate was just too much. Once Tao Jay calmed down, he realized he was back in his sophomore year of college. In this timeline, there was no Huo Ryan in his memory yet. The novel never went into detail about their story, just mentioned they met in college, and that Huo Ryan had fallen for him at first sight. Back then, Tao Jay had been wary of the ruthless and unpredictable Huo Ryan. And this unfamiliar world, taken straight out of a dramatic romance novel, made him deeply uneasy. He felt like if he stayed even a second longer, he might get swept up in its melodramatic chaos. So, without hesitation, Tao Jay dropped out of school. He grabbed his ID card, his bank card, and ran away in the middle of the night. He'd had more than enough education in his last life, and he wasn't interested in Tao Jay's college major anyway. No need to waste 2 more years. Besides, his excellent coding skills and extensive project experience were enough to land him any job he wanted, even without a degree. After some light research, Tao Jay chose to settle in Jinbei City, a place known for its mild climate and delicious street food. He rented an apartment, found a job, and began slowly saving up for his own home. Thankfully, this world mirrored his original one closely, culturally and technologically. The only differences lay in some small terminologies and titles. With that, he adapted quickly and began fixing all the self-destructive habits from his past life. He became, in his own words, a proud young man committed to wellness and balance. Each day, Tao Jay worked regular hours, cooked his own meals, read books, and play games on weekends. On sunny days, he'd stroll through the park. On rainy ones, he stayed in for hot pot. A year passed by like flowing water. By his estimate, it would be another 2 years before Huo Ryan and Shen Neil met for the first time. Tao Jay figured, once the main couple finally got together, his role as a disposable supporting character would be complete. He could finally break free from the shadow of the plot and live a life entirely his own. Although this world seemed to contain no supernatural elements, Tao Jay had already witnessed the terrifying hand of plot itself. His previous job had been perfect, a rare new game company that didn't enforce grueling overtime. With generous benefits and a boss who was actually human. Tao Jay loved it. That is, until one day, he heard shocking news. The company's Series A funding was led by a capital firm under the Huo Group. Worse still, the investment came out of nowhere. The reason? We're optimistic about the company's future. They even said they'd be sending a senior executive from the parent company to personally oversee operations and initiate deep cooperation with Huo Group's other entertainment ventures. Even the CEO was stunned. Why would a giant like Huo Group care about a tiny company like ours? He said. Shaking his head, Tao Jay, wide-eyed and speechless, handed in his resignation that very same day and fled. Before joining his current job, Tao Jay had been unusually cautious during the final interview, repeatedly confirming that the company had no plans to seek investment. Thanks to his incredible tech skills, magnetic presence when discussing programming, and, frankly, unreasonably good looks, the CEO couldn't help but ask, "Are you sure you're here to be a programmer?" He genuinely thought Tao Jay was some rich prodigy, bored and looking to play around with startups. Tao Jay had to spend a good half-hour explaining himself before his new boss finally accepted that he was just a dropout trying to earn a living. That evening, Tao Jay finished his dinner slowly, washed his dishes, and stood solemnly in front of a color-printed image of Cupid. Hands clasped, he offered a sincere wish. May Huo Ryan and Shen Neil fall in love soon. Then, with a satisfied sigh, he sat at his computer and began his favorite part of the day, browsing the web. Besides work and the occasional trip to nearby parks or grocery stores, Tao Jay avoided all other places. He didn't attend any social gatherings either, terrified he might accidentally bump into someone from the novel. As a result, his social circle was limited to coworkers, and even they rarely turned into friends. Life could get lonely, sure, but thankfully, the internet was vast. Whenever Tao Jay saw all those silly strangers online laughing with him, he felt a strange warmth, a shared moment of joy across the miles. He logged onto Sky Forum, browsed from the Daily Chatter section to Laugh Out Loud. His mood swung between hypertension, belly laughs, and utter confusion, until he stopped at a post pinned to the top of the Love and Life board. Title: Help, I'm being pursued by 4 guys but I'm straight. How do I politely turn them down? Hot. Tao Jay clicked with a raised eyebrow. Sure enough, the post was pure fantasy. The original poster claimed to be rich, ridiculously handsome, and simply too nice to reject people. Recently, he'd been approached by a string of male admirers, successful professionals, even celebrities, and didn't want to hurt their feelings. But he just wasn't into guys. The replies were merciless. Most users told him to cut the humble bragging in disguise nonsense and show a photo, or be branded a troll fishing for attention. As someone who had been single since birth, Tao Jay could only nod in agreement. Even he, a gay man, couldn't dream up something this dramatic. And now straight guys were out here farming comments with stories this wild? Under the watchful gaze of Cupid, printed on an A4 sheet and taped to the wall, Tao Jay, using his ridiculous forum ID, let out a snort and posted a reply with practiced sarcasm. Director Tao from Jinbei City's 7th Mental Hospital, hello. How long have you been experiencing this condition? After replying to that post, Tao Jay continued browsing other sections of the forum, catching up on the major headlines of the day. It had been an emotionally intense evening. And now, feeling the weight of fatigue, he glanced at the time in the top right corner of his screen. Nearly 10. Tao Jay's internal clock was always precise. This was usually when he'd take a shower and head to bed. He was just about to close the browser when a new reply notification suddenly popped up. Yawning, he clicked on it out of habit. User 7263978816, op, hello. Dr. Tao, it's been over a month and I'm truly troubled. Is this within your hospital's area of expertise? Can you help me? Tao Jay. He stared blankly at the screen, his hand freezing mid-motion above the mouse. He recognized every word, but together, they made no sense. Who's Dr. Tao? What business scope? Help who? Totally confused, Tao Jay clicked the notification and was led to the original post. only to realize it was that ridiculous bait thread. The one posted by the straight guy fishing for replies. He vaguely recalled his own very friendly reply from earlier. Now he was speechless, fingers poised above the keyboard. He began typing a retort. Director Tao, Jinbei City 7th Psychiatric Hospital. Bro. What I meant was, you've got issues. But before he could hit send, another message came in. User 726397816. Op, Dr. Tao. Are you still online? Sorry. Someone mentioned in the post came to my place and insisted on staying over. I barely managed to convince him to leave. That's why I didn't respond sooner. I'm really sorry. User 726397816. Op. I don't know why everyone else is insulting me or saying I'm baiting. I had to look up what baiting even means. I swear I wasn't lying. You were the only one who showed concern. Whether you're still there or not, I just wanted to say thank you. Tao Jay stared at the earnest reply and, to his own surprise, felt a twinge of guilt. He deleted the blunt retort he'd been about to send, hovering over the keyboard, unsure of what to say to this emotionally invested op. After all, the guy had been polite, hadn't said anything offensive, and it really did seem like he didn't understand internet slang. What if he was telling the truth? Tao Jay suddenly remembered, he was in a melodramatic novel world. Later in the plot, the main character Shen Neil would have about 7 or 8 dashing, wealthy suitors, each more powerful than the last, driving the main love interest. Huo Ryan, absolutely insane. In that light, 4 elite men falling for one clueless straight guy wasn't that far-fetched. Now fully awake, Tao Jay sent a cautious reply. Director Tao, Jinbei City 7th Psychiatric Hospital. It's okay. There are a lot of trolls on forums, so people tend to get defensive. A few minutes passed. User 726397816. Op, Dr. Tao. You're still here. That's great. Can you help me then? I swear I'm not lying. You're a psychiatrist, right? I'm willing to pay for a consultation. User 726397816. Op. I don't mean any disrespect toward gay people. I respect all orientations, and I know it's not an illness. But I've never been in a relationship before. I don't know how to deal with emotions. They're too intense. Simple rejections don't work. I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing and hurting them. I haven't been sleeping well this month. I keep having nightmares. If you could help me, Dr. Tao, I'd really appreciate it. My PPID is 6728F369Z. Now Tao Jay felt even guiltier. But also, something else. He'd seen plenty of straight guys who avoided or even looked down on gay people. The ones who could maintain basic respect were already rare. But someone like this? Clearly distressed, yet still concerned about not hurting others? This was a first. If it was an act, it was a damn convincing one. And for what? But if it was true, then this guy was genuinely kind. A straight man like that deserved to be treated kindly in return. Almost involuntarily, Tao Jay logged into PP and added the user. The profile photo was a serene landscape. The username, Hour. So, a guy who worked an hour. Probably at a big company. Judging by his username, maybe he interacted with all kinds of people. And being gentle and empathetic was just part of who he was. It wasn't that strange for a group of accomplished gay professionals to fall for someone like him. Many seasoned men did end up falling for the rare ones who were pure-hearted. Tao Jay's imagination began to fill in the blanks. The more he thought about it, the more it made sense. His friend request was instantly accepted. Clearly, HR had been waiting. HR. Dr. Tao, is that you? Tao Jay's PP username was simply, Tao, easy to recognize. Just as he was about to clarify that he wasn't actually a doctor, more messages popped in. HR. A bunch of people just added me. I thought one of them might be you. But they all started yelling that I was crazy. Tao. You should delete that reply right away. Don't expose your personal info. HR. Got it. Thank you, Dr. Tao. I'll delete it now. HR. I don't usually go online. Just registered on this forum today. I found it while searching what to do if you're being pursued by someone of the same sex. Sky Forum was the biggest online community in the country, with buzzing activity in every section. The relationships and lifestyle boards were full of outrageous love stories. And it wasn't rare for people to seek help with strange emotional dilemmas. Tao Jay quickly understood. This HR guy was probably older. Not someone who interacted much with young people. No wonder he had no clue about internet slang. He remembered HR saying he'd never been in a relationship. So in Tao Jay's mind, an image began to take shape. A lonely, worn-out middle-aged man, still single, being pursued by someone he wasn't interested in. Too kind to reject them outright. With no one to confide in. Desperate, he turned to the internet for help, only to get mocked. Sure, the guy said he was handsome and wealthy. But lost in the fictional world he'd built up. Tao Jay had already tuned that part out. Even if HR had embellished his appearance a little, it was completely understandable. His life sounded rough enough. Tao Jay couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. Tao, from now on, don't casually post your contact info online. And don't reveal any real personal details. Either. These days, it's really easy to get doxxed. It can mess with your real life. The other side showed typing for quite a while before finally sending a message. HR. Dr. Tao. You're really a good person. HR. You always use your hospital's real name. Has no one ever harassed you online? HR. It must be because you're always comforting and guiding people. Everyone can tell you're a good doctor. Tao Jay, who had collected a pile of good person cards today, hesitated, fingers trembling slightly as he hovered over the keyboard. In the end, he gave up trying to explain. He couldn't bring himself to let this sincere, naive HR guy take another emotional hit. Fine, let them believe he's a doctor. After all, he wasn't charging, just offering help from the heart. Tao. About the payment you mentioned earlier. Don't worry about it. My area of expertise wouldn't really help you much. Tao. But I do like men. So maybe I can still help you figure out what's going on with your friends. How to turn them down for good. This was the first time Tao Jay had ever admitted his orientation to someone. Even though it was just text on a screen, between two anonymous usernames, his palms still broke out in sweat after hitting send. He had tried countless times to tell his parents, who kept urging him to find a girlfriend. But every time, the words stopped at his lips. He was afraid of seeing the disappointment in their eyes. Afraid of becoming other in their world. But tonight, somehow, the truth slipped out so naturally. Maybe it was the weight of hiding for too long. Maybe it was the loneliness of not having anyone to confide in. Or maybe it was just that the person on the other end seemed so honest and kind. He couldn't help but open up. After a pause, Tao Jay casually added one more line, as if it were nothing. Tao. But if it makes you uncomfortable, just forget I said anything. He didn't expect HR to respond so quickly, almost as if he hadn't even needed to think about it. HR. Dr. Tao. You're really brave, to be willing to share something personal just to help someone else. HR. I hope everything goes well for you. I hope you're happy every single day. HR. Don't worry about what others think. Just follow your heart. Tao Jay stared at the screen. Simple words, maybe even a little cliché. But there was so much warmth in them, so much quiet kindness. No wonder so many guys ended up falling for this seemingly old-fashioned, straight arrow type. Tao. Thank you. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Hello. How long has this been going on? If this story made you smile, feel, or pause, consider subscribing to Whisper and Wonder. New episodes every week. Until next time, stay soft, and keep wondering.